Okay. Today's guest is from New Zealand. Her name is Charlotte. She lives on a farm and she got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis a couple of years back. Welcome, Charlotte. Looking forward to hearing about your story and all the things that you do to keep inflammation at bay.
Hi, thanks for having me today. It's great to be able to connect at this level and hopefully share some stuff that'll be to help some other people who are on the Paddison program.
Yeah, and you've come from a background as a registered nurse and worked in primary healthcare. So you've got sort of that perspective that you bring to these changes that you've made to your life. And also now you're a health coach and you've built a business called Wealth of Health, helping people at the moment, just currently in New Zealand. And it's been a great start for your business and being able to share your empathy for people who come to see you with health conditions. So without going into an enormous backstory of what you've been through and everything, why don't we just hear about your diagnosis, what decisions you made, and some of the challenges you've faced and where you're at the moment.
Sure. So I didn't see my diagnosis coming. Like I'm very, as my rheumatologist put in my notes, very health literate. And I just did not see my diagnosis coming. So when it came through, it was I grieved for weeks and weeks. It was a really tough time for me. But at the same time, it gave me an answer. I'd been living with this so-called mystery illness for some time, and I was so frustrated that my life had slowed down and that I didn't know what was going on. So essentially for me, finally having a name to put on my symptoms, it gave me a portal for trying to find answers. So it was a really positive thing in that regard. And from there, I pretty promptly saw a rheumatologist. So he was, I think even the orthopedic surgeon who referred me to the rheumatologist was pretty keen to get me on some medication straight away before I even saw the rheumatologist. And I was like, let's just give us some breathing space. And and then I went on to see the rheumatologist. And I was at that stage, because of my interest in holistic health and nutrition, I just knew deep down that I would be able to find some solutions in terms of the way I managed my diet to impact on my symptoms and my inflammation. And so I managed to convince the rheumatologist just to give me a bit of time, like, we're okay, we're going to manage this, just give me a bit of time. And he said, well, let's catch up in 6 months. And he was kind of skeptical at that point. And at that stage, I hadn't discovered Paddison program, and I was actually doing another autoimmune protocol. And I wasn't really making any progress, and I was like, all the theory says that I should be making this progress. And one day I was just flicking around on Facebook and I found the Paddison program, and I was like, might be something in this. And did a bit of reading, watched some of the videos, and listened to some of the podcasts. And I was like, right, I'm going to give this a shot. So that next time that I went back to see my rheumatologist, I said to him, well, this is what I'm doing. And I flicked him through the information that you guys have on your program for rheumatologists. And I'm still not entirely sure whether he read it, but he's still been quietly intrigued as to my progress, but he doesn't really want to let on. I think he's still pretty stumped by it. Like when I see him, he's always like, this is not the typical process that the disease takes, Charlotte. And, like he's sort of, yeah, I think he doesn't want to get as excited as I am, but he's quietly intrigued. So that's quite cool. I catch up with him probably every 6 months. And yeah, I seem to be, my reports coming back from him afterwards is always, there's been no progression in the disease. Your joints, I think I have a little bit of joint damage down in the base of both my little fingers. Otherwise, there's nothing really. So I just keep on keeping on, and I really appreciate how thorough the rheumatologist is in his examination of my joints. So I look forward to my reviews with him, kind of to be like, hey, I'm still going, still not on drugs, still doing really well, and to share what I've been doing, give him some updates. But yeah, I appreciate how thorough he is with his joint examination, and I always really like that, because I guess as much as I know I'm doing really well, I kind of want to hear him say, the examination findings are that, you're right. Things haven't progressed. So kind of peace of mind for me, I guess. Yeah, so that's pretty much where I'm at the moment. I Did you want me to talk about where I'm going with like what's been working really, really well for me?
I do. Yep. Thanks for the
Yeah.
very rapid report there on how you've done over the last couple of years. I think viewers will appreciate that, and we just go through that part of your story fairly quickly so that we can get on to a lot of things that they're going to learn from and be inspired by. But I just want to comment against your rheumatologist visits and totally agree that even when we're doing well, we still need to keep the rheumatologist on a regular cycle. We need to see that he or she just to continue to check in, because they do have that expertise around the inspection of the joints. They may want to run some lab work, check your CRP, ESR. They may want to run some scans. As you said, you've identified there is a small bit of erosion in one of the joints on your hands, and they can organise those tests. And so, like for an MRI or probably an X-ray in that case. So this is important, and to have this sounding board, a very important sounding board, and absolutely good work, and continue to see him. I think you mentioned, you're part of our support group, and you mentioned recently that he said, if things don't change, I might have to discharge you, but don't let him do that. You want to stay seeing him.
Yeah, I think he's quietly intrigued enough that he won't discharge me, because he was supposed to discharge me, and then he was like, "Oh, I think we'll catch up again." So, yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty cool. Yeah.
yeah, fabulous. All right, well, let's dive straight into some really helpful things of what do you think are the most important aspects of maintaining your current state of wellness and preventing the disease from progressing?
Okay, probably my number one thing for me, just over a year ago, I went on our local buy and sell trade page and I bought a secondhand stationary bike, or I call it an exercycle. And I have, without a word of a lie, probably used that exercycle 6 out of 7 days a week since in the last year, over a year. So it's really a very big part of my healing process, and it's just helped me so much. Um, I think I really feel that it helps to shift any inflammation, and it just helps to keep everything moving. Like I'm that person now, because of the process I've been through my health. I wake and I'm, you sometimes you wake a bit tight and a bit sore and you need to get moving, but I wake motivated. So I'm, out of bed on my exercycle, and I do that for usually around 30 minutes at a time. I have just recently started a strength program with a personal trainer, because while I've been on my exercycle nearly every day for the last year, I was like, oh, I can still do a bit better with, strength and other stuff. And so I do one day and one the next, but I always use the exercycle as my warm up. So that's been really, really important to me, having an exercycle. And I guess I've done a little bit of travel in the last few years, and mostly I've been really fortunate that the places I've stayed have had a gym or something like that. So I've still been able to keep that up when I've been, on the road. And that's just made a massive difference to me. So yeah,
Okay.
it's a game changer.
Yeah, fantastic. So let's talk about it a little bit more, because we shouldn't brush over what you've told us, and I also personally agree with, is that daily exercise, 30 plus minutes of cardiovascular, is absolutely crucial to be able to keep inflammation at bay. So let's continue to go into some specifics here in case people have their curiosity peaked here. So, do you push pretty hard so that you actually notice that your glutes get sore and that you're always maintaining sort of sore glutes, or did you at the start, or did you build up? Did you ramp up to the amount of level that you're at now, and do you now sort of do a maintenance amount each day? What's your attitude towards doing it? Do you have something to eat before you do it? Do you stretch before and afterwards? I want to know those kind of things.
Cool. So the exercycle that I bought for like $100. It was, insignificant really with what it's been, the value that it's brought to my health. And I built up gradually, but I'm at the point now where I probably need to splash out and upgrade, because I've built it up to the highest resistance, and I do that solidly for 30 minutes, but I'm probably not challenging myself enough now. I need to probably buy like one of those fancy spin bikes or something. I don't know. Any recommendations would be welcome. So I do feel it, after 30 minutes, it builds up my heart rate, and I get a good sweat, and I really feel it, and I feel really good afterwards. I don't stretch beforehand, and to be honest, it's something I do in the morning. So I always have my warm lemon water before I go and get on my exercycle. That's part of my morning routine. And then when I get off my exercycle, I have a young family, so I kind of hit the ground running. So I don't typically stretch. I guess stretching might be chasing small children around, trying to get them dressed for school, that sort of thing. So I don't stretch as such. But I'm just trying to think what else you asked. I come away from there, and I do have another large glass of water. I think hydration is really, really important with exercise. So that's been really good. I had initially a lot of the recommendation and Paddison program was around Bikram, but where I live, the nearest Bikram studio is about an hour and a quarter away, and I definitely have been up there a few times. And even recently my husband said, I haven't tried Bikram, let's go do it together. So that was really cool. And I think he even enjoyed it more than I did. And that's fantastic. I do love the Bikram, but it's just, it doesn't, I don't like to say can't, because it doesn't really come into my vocabulary, but it's a challenge to make it work with everything else in my life and the timetable they have, and the fact that I have to travel an hour and a quarter to get there. So I think it's kind of one of those novel things that I do on the odd occasion that it works, but it's not something I can do routinely. Although I feel like if I could do it routinely, it would be pretty important, pretty good for me.
Well, it sounds like your stationary bike is doing the trick, most definitely. And when I used to go on cruise ships as an entertainer and sometimes be away for 10, 12 days at a time, and I'm stuck on a ship, the exercise bike was my default cardiovascular approach. And it was hard to do my stretching and do the Bikram series on the boat because the boat moves. And so I'm trying to stand on one leg and I'm falling over, and then I'm trying to do triangle pose and I'm falling backwards. And when the boat would dock, I would do some of the postures, because when the boat's docked, obviously there's no sway. But hard to get a good cardiovascular and sweat up doing the Bikram postures at home or on a ship without, when it's air conditioned, and you're just not quite getting that same experience. So stationary bike, absolutely fantastic for the purposes of getting that sweat that we need. So you're building up your antioxidant enzymes. And so we actually, within the cells of your body, you're building up a resistance to the free radical load that's being created by the immune system as it tries to clear the joints from these bacterial proteins and these circulating immune complexes. So whilst that cleaning's going on and the immune system's creating this free radical load, and also a free radical load comes from our diet, just lifestyle, just breathing creates free radicals. You're able to, by consistently having this state of fitness, able to have a better control over that free radical situation and be able to clear that out. So important, and really glad that we've spent some time on this. It's a great reminder, I think, for most people to get the discipline.
Absolutely. And I think something to add to that too that I've found really helpful is because you're making a commitment to your health, but when you're on the exercise cycle, you can make it like a multi-purpose time. So for me, I quite often listen to my favorite podcast or some music, or I'm like, sometimes it's not very mindful, because it could be a really good mindful time as well. But sometimes I'll be, checking emails, sending client reminders, so multitasking, I guess, essentially. So, for people who are thinking, I'm not sure I'm going to find time in my day to do this, use it to do something else that you enjoy, or even read a book. You don't have to have your hands on the holds. And quite often, it's quite good just to keep your fingers moving at your side. keep that inflammation shifting while you're on the exercise cycle anyway. But there are other things you can do with that time that makes it not quite, while you're getting into a routine, that makes it feel like it's less of a hassle, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we always look at it's like meditation. The brain comes up with a million reasons why now is not the time to sit down and meditate. And I think exercise is a close second, unless it's enjoyable and you feel that there's the big stick needs to be big enough for you to actually get on that exercise bike, or to go to Bikram class, or to go and start lifting weights at the gym, whatever it might be, even a walk. So let's talk about your next tip. What's the next thing on your list to keep us on track?
Probably, I know for me that sleep and stress management are massive, and that's been a really big undertaking for me to rejuggle my life and find a better balance, and then learn some better techniques for managing stress and prioritizing sleep. I'm fine if I get a good night's sleep, I'm okay. But when my sleep gets compromised, everything turns upside down and inside out. So, yeah, there's a lot of discipline, as you know, around going to bed at a reasonable hour. But I do prioritize sleep, and I have, I guess, been more aware of my work-life balance. I've cut things out of my life that no longer serve me, and been it's quite hard to do that initially, to say no to things. But when you learn to say no and just do what truly, lights you up and keeps your cup full, it makes life simpler, because then the things that you are spending your time on are the things that you enjoy, and instead of being things that feel kind of like burdens that drag you down. So I'm very much focused on doing things that fill me up, make me feel good, and managing them, within my week, so that I'm not overdoing it. I have learnt to meditate, and I find that really, really helpful. Yeah, like you said before, you do have to still make time for it. And, I've got a young family, so I need to manage that the best I can in the time that I have when they're not around. Just I know that I'm not going to be interrupted. But yeah, I've found that very, very, really good for stilling my mind and stilling my thoughts, and just giving me some really good inner peace. It's been really, really helpful. Um, excuse me. Yeah, so that was the next thing on my list that was really important, but wouldn't wouldn't come second to my celery juice. Celery juice is kind of right up there for me. In this journey, I've been, I've always had a juicer, so I think I must have started juicing celery pretty early in the program, like when I followed that initial cleanse stage. Um, and I have chewed through a couple of juices in that time. Juices kind of, well, the ones that I've had don't particularly like celery, so I've had to, work on how I prepare my celery to be kind to the juicer. But I wouldn't go without it now. And there are days where, when I'm away from home, and it's not always, there's not a lot of places where I live or where I travel that you can just get celery juice from a juice bar. So there are days that I definitely do go without celery juice. But man, I just love coming home and having my celery juice. I can feel how good it is for my body as soon as I take a sip. It's so good. I I try and grow my own celery as much as I can in the garden. That's been hit and miss. I sometimes have amazing crops and it's really, really going well, and then the next crop is just a fuzz. So yeah, you just do your best. And lots of my friends know that I'm a big fan of celery, so sometimes I get bunches of celery delivered, and that's really lovely as well. From other people's gardens. So yeah, I think celery juice is amazing, and shouldn't, there's so much literature to support how healing it is for your body as well. But yeah, that's really big for me. And it's amazing the amount of people who are still like, oh, celery juice. You're like, well, try some, it's not that bad. And I guess you just become accustomed to it. But yeah, I think that's been really, really important for my healing.
Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. So going, we'll touch upon celery juice again in a minute. Stress reduction and sleep you mentioned. And have you ever noticed a connection between symptoms and either stress or sleep? Or is it just a feeling that if you don't get them right, then the other aspects of what you're doing don't work as well?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Um, I think for me, if I get tired, I get a bit I get, I just develop a little bit of underlying anxiety, and everything kind of spirals downhill from there. And then I do start to, feel the inflammation coming back in my hands a wee bit. And so it's just really like sleep is like a foundation for me. If I get good sleep, everything else tends to just fall into place a little nicer, and it just goes a bit smoother for me. Yeah. I'm just trying to think about stress. I'm just going to have some water. There's definitely times in life, as we know, where there is more stress and just more stuff happening that you need to deal with, and other stresses. And I think if I think about the two together, when I am stressed, I do need to be very mindful of still getting on my exercise cycle each day and still getting myself to bed at a reasonable hour, and then I can usually pretty quickly get things back on track. But yeah, those are the things that are sometimes non-negotiables. You need to be always really super aware of the amount of sleep that you're getting. That's what's been really helpful for me.
Okay, fabulous. Whilst you have a drink, is there a time that you set for yourself to go to bed each night? And if you don't get enough sleep, do you try and catch a little nap during the day, or do you go to bed earlier the next night?
This is a very good question. So in my coaching programs, I'm always, talking about how we need better bedtime routines and how we need to prioritize sleep. I am trying to walk the talk a little better. And so I do, I'm trying to walk the talk better, but in saying that, I actually, because of what I've been through with cleansing my body and the dietary changes I've made, I actually think I need less sleep than I used to, which is really interesting as well. So while I'm saying, sleep is really, really important to me, I get by and function amazingly on less than I used to have, which is really interesting. But I do still try and, follow an evening routine, no screen time, at least an hour before bed, and just try and like wind things down. It's been, a bit of a chilly winter in New Zealand, so I often have a nice hot bath, that sort of thing. It really helps ease your joints, and then, helps to calm things down so that you're ready for a good night's sleep. I think that answers your question.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
And what about napping?
Yeah, I'm not too much of a napper. Like, I'd have to be really, I'd have to be pretty unwell or exhausted to nap during the day. I do try and push myself through the day. Like, I will sit down and meditate or just lie in the sun and close my eyes, that sort of thing. But I do try and push through and just get myself to bed earlier at the end of the day. Otherwise, I find if I sleep during the day, it disrupts my nighttime sleep patterns.
Totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if you can get through the day and you don't feel the need to nap and you're sleeping well at night, I think that's ideal. I know there are people who believe that having a little nap after lunch is not only not a bad thing, but healthy. I think that if your energy levels are great and you go through the day without the feeling of needing to, or you just skip past that little inclination of wanting to, I think that's an ideal state of energy. Okay, so we've checked off celery juice. I don't have any questions about that, actually. I just obviously have put that at the top of my list for a very long time. When I was going through a lot of inflammation, found it very, very helpful, obviously with cucumber in my case. So what's your next tip then?
I think for me, I have been obsessive about green smoothies. I actually just at the weekend had to buy another Nutribullet. It must be about my third one, because I make so many smoothies, and I don't think I'm hard on my gear, but I think they just have a lifetime. They have a lifespan. They don't last forever. So I make a lot of green smoothies, and I put all the intense greens that I have in my diet down to like as the answer to a lot of the healing that I've done internally. Like I'm in my coaching programs, I talk a lot about nutrient density and how we actually need a lot more a lot more fruit and vegetables, and then specifically we need a lot more greens. And I find that the green smoothie is just the best way to get it in. And that's been just so good for me. And so I grow a lot of just spinach and silver beet and things like that, kale in my garden. Very simple to grow when the pet lambs don't sneak under the fence and eat it. It's a little bit of a challenge this time of the year. So I grow a lot of that, and I actually don't know. I feel like I'm so fortunate. I don't know where I'd be if I had to buy the amount of greens that I get through each week. So yeah, very fortunate to have the space that I can just grow my own. My green smoothie, my favorite sort of green smoothie combo is banana and melon, either rock melon or honeydew. Either seem to be fine for me. Usually some kale and some silver beet or spinach. I quite like to put a mint leaf in, like fresh mint from the garden. That's really lovely. And I absolutely love freshly squeezed lime juice. I know that probably doesn't work for everyone, but it lifts it. It gives it the most amazing flavour. So that's something I really enjoy in my smoothie. And coconut water. So I use the coconut water. I often use this as a time of day that I put my probiotics in there as well, because I've been taking probiotics for quite some time now, and I find them really helpful. And yeah, so I'm pretty sure that's about everything that goes in my smoothie. One of those things that you just do by default. Oh, I've actually got a greens powder mix that I put in as well. That's got spirulina and a few other greens in it. And so I find that just is something that I add to that, just bulks it up a bit more with so much more good stuff. So that's my green smoothie. Recently, I have been adding more raw turmeric to my diet. And that's, for some of you that have tried raw turmeric, you'll know that's it's quite strong. It's something else. So I decided I had to find a way to make a turmeric smoothie, and I created this smoothie with, I always use banana as a base because it kind of makes it creamier. So it was banana, a whole chopped up orange, like a fresh orange, probably like half a thumb size piece of, raw turmeric root, sometimes a bit of fresh ginger root as well, actually, and coconut water. I think that was it. Yeah, sometimes a little touch of honey. Sometimes people like it a bit sweeter. And I just blitz that all on my NutriBullet, and that's so good. And I just feel like it's such a good way to get that really good raw turmeric in, because I've found turmeric to be really helpful for reducing inflammation as well.
Wow.
So yeah, I'm
great.
a big fan of smoothies.
Yeah. Okay. Beautiful. Me too. Green smoothies and green juices. You cannot go wrong. No wonder you're doing so well. This is big reminders to people. These are the fundamentals of our program. So you're knocking out these fundamentals and you're going to get results. So what else is on your list?
What else? I just can't survive without my buckwheat and quinoa and my dulse, my seaweed. I actually just this morning had to order some more seaweed. I was like, oh my goodness, I'm nearly out. I can't. Well, I say that I can't function without it, but I just love it so much. I've just come to really enjoy it, and it's so funny when you go out and about. People are like, what are you eating? And I'm like, this is my staple. This is my standard. It's so good. So I've been buying buckwheat and quinoa in bulk. And that's worked really well for me. I often, make up a big pot because I like to have it fresh and hot in the morning, and then I'll have some left over for lunch, and sometimes I'll have a little bit more with my dinner as well. But I just love it. It does mean, for me, I do end up sprinkling a bit of salt over it because I feel like it needs some salt to me. But yeah, I just love it. It's like my happy food. I feel when I've been away from home, like I've kind of mastered all of those little tips and tricks for being away from home and still eating the way you need to eat. And it's not always easy, but I feel so happy if I have my buckwheat and quinoa for my breakfast. It's just really good. And I know like it's a really good reset for me. Just back to that baseline, I guess it just feels really good. And it's been enough because for me, when I went on to Paddison program, I still am. I'm still a very proud Kiwi farmer on a dairy farm, and currently transitioning our farm to organic production. We also produce some amazing beef and lamb on our farm. So for me to take on a vegan diet that was a really big deal. And it's not that I was never a massive meat eater, but I really appreciate good quality food that we produce on our farm. So that was a really big deal to take that out. But I found that the buckwheat and quinoa have been enough to sort of sustain me as regards to protein. So that's been really helpful. Yeah.
Good. Again, real fundamental stuff here. That's really refreshing to hear that the foundational parts of my healing process are applying so well in your case too, which are these buckwheat and quinoa just being so alkalizing, non-irritating, non-grains. They're seeds. They're very gentle on the digestive system. They're complete proteins. They're low in calories, so you can eat a lot of them without worrying about weight gain. Not that any of us have to worry about that. And just that confidence that you get with being able to eat them on a regular basis and know that inflammation is going to be under control. And that reassurance is very, very crucial when we're going through this, as so many doubts creep in and worries creep in if inflammation starts to creep in. So have you got anything else on the list?
What else? I think no, I think those are the really key things I had on my list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a fantastic list. You come from this background of being a registered nurse working in primary healthcare. When you see people who still work in that field, and you get into discussions about what you do now and what you're eating and stuff, are there any? Do you feel a disconnect with the medical community, or do you feel that you've created a nice sort of I guess blend between what you're doing now and your education background?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So, um, I always recall some of the patients I used to deal with rheumatoid arthritis and how challenging their lives were, and I guess that haunted me when I first got my diagnosis. And it's still today. I still recall some of those people and the challenges they faced, and I was like, wow. It was one of those things that kind of fueled my devotion to my healing. I was like, wow, I'm not, if I can avoid it, I'm not going down that road. So yeah, and then moving on from that, I still catch up with some of my old colleagues, and yeah, they are really interested in what I'm doing. I even had one of the GPs that I worked with referred some clients to me, which was pretty cool. So yeah, she's very open to what I'm doing, and the benefits of looking at, because for them, a lot of them, it's just like, oh, lifestyle factors, because they often it's often a little bit missed in conventional medicine, the value of lifestyle and all that entails. So yeah, it's really nice to catch up with them, and they often ask if I miss my old role, and I'm like, oh, you know what? There's definitely parts of my nursing career that I really miss, but what I'm doing now is just so much more fulfilling because I'm doing what I love, and I'm seeing some really brilliant results in the people that I work with. So it's so rewarding, and I work on my terms, my time. It's great. So yeah, it's really, really good.
Yeah, well, congratulations on everything that you've done, not just with your health that you've shared us with, because that alone is tremendously impressive, but also being able to start your own business. It takes time to educate yourself and then, build some kind of framework around how you're going to deliver the information and websites and in some cases insurance and all sorts of stuff, and then building a client base. And so, both these things, have an element of risk about them as well, um, and you've negated the risk by being in contact with your rheumatologist on your health front, keeping a close relationship going and getting blood tests results so frequently. Everything's being done very, very above board and sensibly. And with the business too, whilst it's just beginning, I think that anyone who's watched this can see how transparent you are and how nice it would be to have conversations with you about their health and see that you certainly know what you're talking about. So your website, if people want to go there, the web address is wealthofhealth.co.nz. So the co, it's not com, but co.nz for New Zealand, wealthofhealth.co.nz. Charlotte's available to help you with various health conditions. And it's been a pleasure. So thank you, Charlotte, for coming on this episode. And I look forward to continuing to help you online in our support platform where we communicate regularly, and you're inspiring others in there as well.
Cool, thank you.
All right, that'll do. Thanks very much. So I'll just stop the recording here so that doesn't go on forever.